represent the sample space of a repeated experiment? Think about this question during the lesson. Allison and Deandra are playing a game. They each take a turn at rolling a die. If the greatest number rolled is 1, 2, 3, or 4, then player A wins. If the greatest number rolled is 5 or 6, then player B wins. Allison and Deandra want to know which player has a better chance of winning their game. How can they use all the possible outcomes of the game to determine whether it is better to be player A or player B? Step 1. Determine the possible outcomes of each roll. A repeated experiment is a random experiment done with the same conditions and parameters as a previous experiment. How many possible outcomes are there for each roll?
Select your answer.
Each roll has 6 possible outcomes. What methods can you use to record the sample space of a repeated experiment? Step 2. Use a table to record the sample space of the repeated experiment. Remember, the sample space shows all the possible outcomes. Each row of the table represents an outcome of the first roll. Each column of the table represents an outcome of the second roll. The table is 6 by 6. Each roll has 6 possible outcomes. Allison and Deandra can use the table that represents the sample space to see how many outcomes favor each player.
Jorge will flip a quarter 2 times. Complete the table and then list the sample space of this repeated experiment. Use H for heads and T for tails.
All right, so we look at the outcomes. You have H's here, you got an H, T. So what do you think will go here? T, because you got heads or tails. Either way, you decide to roll. All right, so flip a quarter. So now we have this first one is H and H. Then you move to this one, you have, excuse me, you have H and H, and then you have here T and what goes here? H. Then you have in the second column, you have the H, and then you have the T. And in the final blank space, you have T and T. And so the sample space is, and that means we're just going to copy all of these. These are all the sample spaces. So you would just write here H, H, T, H, H, T, and T, T. That's it.
Maria flips a penny 3 times. How many possible outcomes are in the sample space?
Use the tree diagram to represent the sample space. So flip 1, heads and tails. Flip 2 could either be heads or tails. And then heads and tails. Then flip 3, you have the coins, and it could be all of these options you see here in that tree diagram. And then the outcomes are written in the letters, heads or representing heads and tails. So you have heads, 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 tails, and all the other different variations written here. The sample space consists of 8 possible outcomes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Chet and Xander are using a spinner to play rock, paper, scissors. What is the sample space for 2 spins of the spinner?
Use an organized list to represent the sample space. For each of the possible 3 outcomes of the first spin, there are 3 possible outcomes, and for the second spin is also 3 possible outcomes. So outcomes could be rock, 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 paper, rock, scissors, paper, rock, paper, 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 scissors, scissors, rock, scissors, paper, scissors, scissors. So if we count that, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So the sample space consists of 9 outcomes.
A bag contains a yellow, blue, and green marble. June picks a marble from the bag, then returns the marble and picks again. Record the sample space for the repeated experiment.
Okay, so to record the sample space, we can do a tree diagram, which we saw in the example, or we could do an organized list. I'm going to use an organized list to show the options. Now first, it says June picks a marble from the bag, then returns the marble and picks again. So each time, or how many times is she reaching her hand into this bag? 2. She picks first time and then she picks again. So that's 2 times. So from those 2 times, she has how many options? 3. She has 3 options or possible outcomes, which is yellow, blue, and green. So in my organized list, I'm going to show what her options or outcomes can be. So first, I'm going to use abbreviations for the colors. So first time she chooses, she can have yellow and yellow. Next time she pulls, she can have a yellow and a blue. Next time, she can have a yellow and a green. Another time she pulls, excuse me, she can have blue and blue. She can have a possible blue, yellow, and she can have a possible blue and green. Then she can also have green and green, or green and yellow, or green and blue. So these are all of the possible outcomes. And let's count how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there are 9 possible outcomes.